One of my favorite modules of the entire series is episode 6's Eroded Badlands. Today we'll be expanding it even further with a 16x16 module, complete with new mobs, and with this I'm also going to be implementing a change that is going to have far-reaching consequences for the entire display. So without further ado, let's build this thing. So I mentioned a big change to the entire layout. In order to accommodate this module, I've decided to significantly expand the size of the display, allowing for larger transition areas between each of the biomes. I was pleasantly surprised by the warm reception to the idea of a village expansion in a previous episode, and I think expanding other biomes like that will continue to help the look and feel of the whole connected module. This is the area we're going to be focusing on today, between the Pillager Outpost and the former Badlands module. As you can see, the terrain is going to be a little funky, and so some modifications are first going to be made to the Pillager Outpost, basically taking down that original hill and shifting that over into our new module. This module is going to be an entire chunk, so it is going to be a big boy, but I'm going to try not to clutter it so much as I have in the past with some of my structure-based modules. These 16x16 plates work great, they're super strong and fairly common. They come in a lot of Minecraft sets, which means I happen to have a lot on hand. You'll also notice that I'm keeping this far left edge clean. That's just because it is going to be the furthest edge of the model, and for now, nothing will be up against it. And as you can see, this will slide smoothly into place between the existing modules. Perfect. Now, what to fill it with? I don't want it to be too busy, but I still want it to be interesting and still have some merit on its own. Of course, I think this would be a great time to bring back in some more of those beautiful Badlands stripes, so at least we want one sort of rock formation going on here, and so that's where I'm going to start right away. It's going to help create a more natural transition rather than just a sand hill like I had before. I think this is going to be much more interesting to look at, and it gives me, of course, an excuse to use more of my sand red, which I've been building up for a number of months now, after I managed to pretty much deplete it building that first Badlands module. For those of you unfamiliar with sand red, it is an extremely rare LEGO color produced in the early 2000s. It's most well known for its appearance in the Life on Mars space theme, but also showed up in Star Wars and service packs as well. Sand red tends to be pretty expensive, and it's only been produced in 40 different elements, making it extremely difficult to build with. It's always a challenge finding just enough bricks at a hopefully somewhat reasonable price to make even just one of these simple stripes. So that small stripe I just added cost me somewhere around $15 to make. It's a beautiful color, but I definitely can't recommend it for everyone's Mesa Badlands Minecraft interpretation. But that's enough talk about sand red. One of the great things about a large terrain-based model like this one is that there's a lot of tiles to place down. The dark orange tiles you see here are actually going to be the extent of the Badlands portion of this expansion. There's two other biomes that I want to add on to, the desert and the savanna that touches up against the Pillager Outpost. I did have some leftover olive green pieces, believe it or not, which will allow me to bring the savanna just a little bit further up here to the left. What I'd like to add here is actually another structure to our outpost encampment, and that is the tent that generally spawns alongside one of these massive towers. Rather than leaving the desert between these two biomes completely empty though, I'm actually going to make that the staging grounds for a raid that's going to take place on the future desert village. I'll mark out the spots for the new and moved structures with jumpers here below, and then I'll finish off the pretty flat and simple desert terrain. So the tent is quite an interesting build in that it's actually not possible to build it in LEGO, as 8 of the blocks that comprise it are actually floating and not connected to anything. So I'm going to be cheating a little bit by using some, hopefully mostly invisible techniques to pull off that floating effect and try to keep it as accurate as possible. There's also a crafting table inside, and honestly, there haven't really been a lot of crafting tables in this build yet. But here's the technique that I was talking about. Simply using those modified 2x2 tile/plates, it creates a pretty effective look, and you'd have to look way underneath to actually see that there is some plates holding it in place. The white actually works really well in this space too, as there's a lot of deep, rich colors with the dark orange, all the brown and dark bluish gray of the outpost. Really pops here, and I'm glad that I added it. And now it's sweet, sweet tiling time. I'm going to leave some open jumpers in the desert for some mobs, cacti, and some dead bushes, but the rest is going to be tiled off. And I'm going to be cutting it very close with the amount of tiles I have. I nearly had enough 2x2 tan tiles to make it all the way to the end of this module, but this space ended up being left over, so I had to order 500 more from Lego.com. Thankfully, they're a bestseller part and arrived quite quickly. We're talking within a week. It was sweet. And now I have plenty for when I do my massive desert village module too. Plus, I'll also be using them for some underwater modules, for sand, and probably some for beaches too. I'm guessing I'm going to go through all of these again. The next step is to cover up all those exposed jumpers with various mobs and vegetation. Here in the savannah, I'm still going to be using regular green stalks as I just don't have enough in olive green, and the price continues to steadily rise. I did collect enough 1x2 green grill tiles to make 2 cacti though, which is pretty exciting, and I still have plenty of dead bushes all over. Something I don't want to forget to re-add are the training dummies that originally appeared in the Pillager Outpost courtyard, and along with that, the Iron Golem cage, which I've changed slightly to be much easier to remove should I ever want to get at the Iron Golem himself, to use him elsewhere, or to allow him to escape. I'll also be adding some rabbits for the first time in this display. These guys showed up in 2 sets, the farm cottage and more recently in the rabbit ranch, unsurprisingly. I also picked up another husk exclusive to the creeper mindset, and this is a perfect place for him. The highlight though is this custom Ravager. I've managed to base it off the LEGO design, keeping that headbutting feature, all the while adding posability in the legs, which the official design does not have, and I just cleaned up some of the edges on him to make him look a little better. Now we'll move this thing into the larger display and see how it looks. The addition of this module means some pretty big things for the display as a whole. Again, we're getting some of that much needed breathing room in between modules, as we've spaced out the entire display in pretty much every area. I think the best news of all here is that this means the series is going to go on a lot longer because I have a lot more space to fill in between all these modules. Which brings me to the next episode. Next one's going to be a fun one. It's going to be the start of a very large desert village. It's an episode you're not going to want to miss, and you can watch it as early as, well, today by becoming a channel member. Channel members get early access to a huge chunk of my content, including the LEGO Minecraft series, where members are always at least one episode ahead of everybody else. But hey, that's all for this time. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope you enjoy what it entails for this series as a whole. At the very least, it means a lot more episodes, so you can definitely look forward to that. As always, have yourself a great life, and I'll see you next time.